It's great.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Kenneth Prudencio. I'm the Youth Alternate IG representative. I am honored to be here today to discuss with my colleagues and you on the pivotal role of the IG representative during the different IG meetings. The agenda, so we can go to the slide agenda. The agenda of the day starts by this quick introduction. Then the IG reps will present themselves. After that, I will give the floor to PI, the NGO host, who will be followed by the GFF representative. There, we will have a Q&A session, followed by an overview of the IG16 discussions and outcomes and key priorities for the IG17. After that, a Q&A discussion, and my colleagues Jackie and Mariama will be glad to be your respondents to your questions during this Q&A. Finally, we have the closing remarks that we put an end to the discussion. I want to start by emphasizing that the CSCG role and subsequently the IG reps role was not given. It is itself an important success from months and years of advocacy to make sure that CSOs and YLOs, communities' voices are heard in the GFF processes and at the investors group table. By our presence, we are critical in the process of making sure that investors anchor the strategies in core principles like accountability, human rights, communities, needs-based policies and funding. Our role is also important in ensuring that the successes and challenges of are acknowledged in a way that strengthens the pillars of work of the GFF. You would see HSS and improved health for women, children, and adolescents. Therefore, during the IG16, we discussed the successes in topics like vaccination, the expectation of the resource mobilization campaign, and the governance challenges. I won't go into details. My colleagues will talk about this item when they will have the floor. To finish with this, I want to commend the presence and proactivities of my colleagues, the IG rep, who I invite to introduce themselves now in this order: Maziko, Miria, Mariama, Jackie, and Oyeyemi. Then I will leave the floor to the NGO hosts for the remaining topics of the discussions. IG reps, so you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Kenneth. My name is Maziko Matemba. I'm the IG rep from Malawi. Thank you.
Miria?
Yes, unmuting. Hi, everyone. This is Miria Kutsumpa from VEMOS, one of the civil society organizations representative at the IG, coming from the Netherlands.
Thank you, Miria. Mariama? Vincent, is Mariama with us?
I think she's not with us yet.
Okay, so I give the floor to Jackie.
Thank you. Greetings, everyone. I'm Jackie Katana from Uganda, Faith for Family Health Initiative, CSO Alternate. Thank you for
Jackie.
joining.
Thank you, Jackie. Oyeyemi, you have the floor.
Hi, everyone. My name is Oyeyemi Piton, Executive Director, GMOB Initiative, Nigeria. I'm one of the CSO alternates on the IG. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Oyeyemi, and thank you, colleagues. I want now to give the floor to Christina to present the NGO host work. Christina, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I'm in Washington, D.C. It's a really cold and misty morning, so I wish I was in San Francisco, and that's why I have this background. Quickly, I want to introduce myself and my team. My name is Christina Weggs. I work for PAI. PAI is a longtime member of the Civil Society Coordinating Group, and recently, about a year and a half ago, we had the privilege of being invited to be what's called the NGO host for CSO and YLO engagement in the GFF. And in that role, we have three main functions. First, we act as a coordinator for this excellent group, this critical group of advocates who are pushing for rights and results in GFF countries and at the global level. We also have provided $2.75 million worth of grants in the past year with funding from the GFF to 51 youth and civil society advocacy groups who are working in 28 GFF countries, making sure that they're shaping GFF policies and priorities, tracking progress, and driving accountability at all levels for both rights, results, and access. And our third function is we host something called the CSCG NGO Hub, and that is a clearinghouse, a website where everyone can go to get information about what is happening with the GFF, information about grants, tools, and there's a lot of incredible case studies from the work that colleagues in this community are doing around the world. So I wanted to take a chance to introduce myself, and then also my colleagues, Vincent is here, who started us off, Andrew Moran, Gerardo, Laura, and others. So that's us from the NGO host, and we're thrilled to be here with you today. I'll hand it back to you, Kenneth.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you for this introduction. Now, I want to give the floor to the GFF. I see that Mati is there to give us some updates about the youth engagement and the Deliver the Future campaign. Mati, you have the floor.
Merci Kenneth, bonjour à tous, j'espère que vous allez bien. Matidia, responsable société civile au niveau du GFF, du secrétariat du GFF. Je vais vous donner un rapide aperçu des derniers avancements et également vous donner un petit update sur la campagne de mobilisation de ressources à laquelle vous avez tous contribué. Donc, vous avez déjà reçu, merci à Myria d'avoir partagé les documents dans le groupe. Ce sur quoi j'aimerais parler, ça ne concerne pas les documents, vu qu'ils ont tous été lus. J'espère que vous avez eu le temps, en tout cas, de les lire. Ce que j'aimerais souligner, c'est surtout la clôture prochaine de l'agenda conjoint sur le financement de la santé, à laquelle certains d'entre vous ont pu participer. Donc, ça concerne ce que vous connaissez tous sous le Joint Learning Agenda, qui a été un programme lancé par le GFF en collaboration avec Gavi, le partenariat pour la santé mondiale de la santé de l'enfant, de la mère, du nouveau-né et de l'enfant, ainsi que le partenariat UHC 2030. Et le projet a démarré en 2020. Il a permis de former dans 20 pays en Afrique plus de 400 personnes, membres de la société civile, jeunes, parlementaires, journalistes. Et ce projet a permis non seulement de former la société civile, mais il a également permis de renforcer leur capacité de plaidoyer en matière de couverture sanitaire universelle, mais également sur le financement de la santé. Le programme aujourd'hui, on a une vraie masse critique de membres actifs de société civile qui sont qualifiés dans le plaidoyer pour le financement de la santé à travers 20 pays. Donc, les pays sont la plupart, hormis le Togo et le Bénin, ce sont tous des pays du GFF. Donc, il y a 10 pays francophones, 10 pays anglophones. Le programme vient d'être clôturé avec une évaluation qui a vraiment permis de ressortir la portée impressionnante de ce programme et le renforcement de capacité des OSC. On est encore en train de mesurer l'impact que cette formation a eu dans beaucoup de pays, mais pour l'instant, ce qu'on observe, c'est vraiment un fort mouvement des coalitions qui existaient déjà, mais qui ont été renforcées, ou des nouvelles coalitions sur la couverture sanitaire universelle à travers les 20 pays. Donc ça a permis d'améliorer non seulement la qualité, mais le nombre d'activités de plaidoyer. Et actuellement, ce qu'on a pu constater, c'est vraiment la création d'une d'une communauté virtuelle, une communauté de pratique régionale, d'organisation de la société civile et de coalition. Et cette communauté de pratique qui vraiment est derrière, et le moteur derrière ce mouvement qu'on voit en Afrique, a permis justement de se lier au programme P4H de l'OMS. Et on espère en tout cas constater certaines avancées. On a déjà pas mal d'avancées au niveau du Kenya, au niveau de Madagascar. Le plaidoyer a permis d'avoir de sécuriser un budget sur le plaidoyer, sur une ligne contraceptive au niveau de Madagascar. Au niveau du Kenya, on a également pas mal de comtés qui ont pu dédier du financement pour la santé. Ce sont juste 2 exemples, mais à travers beaucoup de pays, il est vraiment on a constaté vraiment que voilà, il y a beaucoup de pays où les avancées sont en train d'être retenues, d'être enregistrées, d'être documentées. Donc, ça nous permettra, pas seulement au GFF, mais aux membres de la société civile et aussi à PAI, parce que PAI a permis de financer beaucoup de ces ONG, de ces partenaires qui ont participé au JLA. Donc, on essaye au fur et à mesure de documenter les leçons apprises, les résultats, les succès de plaidoyer qui nous permettront non seulement au niveau du secrétariat du GFF, mais au niveau de PAI aussi, de disséminer ces résultats, mais de montrer les capacités de la société civile et l'investissement, l'impact que cet investissement a eu au niveau des différents pays. Donc, pour nous, c'est très important de documenter, et j'espère que les participants qui sont présents dans ce call pourront continuer non seulement à documenter, mais partager justement les leçons apprises pour permettre à tout le monde, aux partenaires, de connaître ce projet, mais aussi d'assurer la durabilité. Les prochaines étapes par rapport au Joint Learning Agenda, elles sont d'essayer de justement solidifier cette communauté de pratique qui est vraiment un espace pour partager les expériences, les bonnes pratiques à travers les différents pays. Et certaines recommandations qui sont issues de l'évaluation ont permis d'avoir un programme vraiment à long terme pour voir comment les 2 premières phases du programme peuvent être pérennisées au niveau des différents pays. Comment faire pour qu'une théorie du changement utilisant les bonnes pratiques du programme ont été efficaces, et comment mettre à l'échelle justement cette théorie de changement pour permettre à certaines organisations qui commencent après, comment ils peuvent vraiment jouer leur rôle pleinement dans le plaidoyer en faveur de la couverture sanitaire universelle. Une des recommandations qui est également ressortie, c'est la mise en commun des fonds des initiatives de santé globale qu'on appelle les Global Health Initiatives, pour avoir ce pooling justement des financements, cette mise en commun des financements pour permettre aux pays, aux OSC dans les pays, d'accroître leur sécurité financière à long terme et davantage développer leurs activités de plaidoyer. Donc, ce sont ces recommandations qui sont sorties et qui sont vraiment très à point actuellement pendant qu'on parle justement de l'alignement des initiatives de santé globale pour renforcer les systèmes de santé, la couverture maladie universelle, mais aussi leur soutien qu'ils apportent aux OSC dans les pays. Une autre recommandation, c'est aussi de fournir un soutien individualisé par pays. Comme on le sait, les progrès qui ont été réalisés dans les 20 pays ayant bénéficié de la formation ne sont pas les mêmes. Donc, ces progrès-là nécessitent d'être vus de manière individuelle afin de pouvoir avoir un soutien basé sur le contexte en fonction des défis, mais aussi des opportunités des différentes organisations de la société civile dans les pays. Enfin, le dernier, c'est de renforcer la communauté de pratique régionale sur la CSU. Et l'idée, c'est, comme je le disais tout à l'heure, d'avoir une connexion avec le réseau P4H hébergé à l'OMS pour avoir justement éviter de dupliquer, mais voir les similitudes et aussi les opportunités qui existent afin de renforcer non seulement les capacités, mais d'avoir un mouvement beaucoup plus large et aligné sur la CSU. Donc voilà le petit update que je voulais donner concernant les nouvelles du secrétariat. Je voulais juste parler de ce programme-là. Je sais que Myria et le reste de l'équipe pourront parler plus spécifiquement des documents de la réunion de la semaine prochaine du groupe des investisseurs. Ensuite, j'aimerais juste, avant de terminer, donner un petit update par rapport à, comme je le disais tout à l'heure, la campagne qu'on est en train qu'on a lancée l'année dernière et qui est toujours en cours. Et je voulais vous donner juste un petit aperçu de ce qui s'est passé à Berlin pendant l'Assemblée mondiale de la santé qui s'est passée le 16 octobre, entre le 16 ou le 14 et le 16 octobre. Excusez-moi, je ne me rappelle plus de la date. Donc, qu'est-ce qui s'est passé? L'objectif de la campagne, comme je l'avais dit, c'était de récolter, de lever 800 millions de fonds d'ici 2024. Donc, avec un premier événement de réapprovisionnement le 16 octobre et un deuxième durant la réunion de printemps de la Banque mondiale en mars ou avril 2024. Donc, à Berlin, on a pu avoir des contributions de beaucoup de bailleurs, notamment le Royaume-Uni à hauteur de 120 millions. La Hollande nous a donné 110 millions de dollars. Les USA, qui sont un nouveau bailleur, nous ont donné un financement de 4 millions qui il y a une négociation en cours pour que ce financement aille jusqu'à hauteur de 90 millions. La Fondation Gates nous a donné 37,5 millions, l'Allemagne 25 millions, le Japon 10 millions. Donc, on a un total de financement qui a été sécurisé à Berlin à hauteur de 442,5 millions, ce qui nous laisse à peu près la moitié. Mais juste, ce qui est à souligner, c'est qu'on a eu beaucoup de nouveaux bailleurs, d'engagement du gouvernement du Libéria, du gouvernement du Malawi, de la Côte d'Ivoire, de l'Éthiopie. Les USA et la fondation CIF sont des nouveaux bailleurs qui ont rejoint le GFF et on est actuellement en discussion avec plusieurs bailleurs, notamment la Norvège, le Danemark, le Japon, la fondation Buffett, l'Espagne et la France, en espérant avoir sécurisé ces contributions-là entre maintenant et le mois d'avril. Donc voilà ce que je voulais donner comme update. Peut-être que je vais laisser la parole à ma collègue Stéphanie qui est en ligne si elle a quelque chose à ajouter. Sinon, je vous remets le micro. Merci encore et je reste disponible pour répondre à des questions. Stephanie, over to you if you had anything to add.
Stephanie, I don't know if you can hear us. If you have anything to add, you can take the floor. Okay.
Sorry, Matti. This is Stephanie. It's good to speak to everyone. For those who I haven't spoken to before, my name is Stephanie Salisbury. I'm a partnership specialist with the GFF Secretariat based in DC. But sorry, Matti, I missed a large part of your update just because of the interpretation issues. But I trust you covered everything well. And I'm happy to answer any questions about the investors group if folks have any.
Thank you very much, Stephanie.
Je m'excuse, je ne savais pas que la traduction ne marchait pas. Does it mean half of my inputs have not been heard by Anglophones? I'm really sorry. I didn't realize that the translation was not, there was issues with translation. But I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Yes, apparently the translation was having troubles. Thanks, Mati, for your presentation, and thanks, Stephanie, for your availability. I will now give the floor to Vincent for the next steps concerning the Q&A session now, and the floor to all of you to ask us questions about what you just heard and what you want to know better. You have the floor, Vincent.
Merci Kenneth et toutes mes excuses pour les problèmes d'interprétation. Je crois que nous souhaitons inviter. Thank you, Kenneth, and sorry for the interpretation issues. I'd like to give the floor to all of you to ask any question you would like to the GFF Secretariat. So you can do so by raising your hand or writing the chat any question that you would like Mati and Stephanie to answer ahead of the IG17. So Jackie, the floor is yours. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mine is not a question, but I was able somehow to log on to the Wadi and it worked. I would like to recap a few things that maybe could guide this discussion for those who are not able to follow. Mati talked about the current engagements of GFF across different countries. But what I can emphasize, she talked about the importance of documentation, best practices aligned to the theory of change, and how we can share these widely and they inform our continuous programming and policy engagement. She also talked about the current engagements and some of them that are going to inform the IG17 agenda, and that is the future of the global health initiatives or the financing mechanisms, the importance of coordination, alignment, as well as harmonization to avoid duplication. And these discussions are going to continue. She again gave updates on the Deliver the Future Resource Mobilization campaign, where she gave a summary of the different contributions so far that have come in, the new donors, including US then foundations like CIF, among others, and those negotiations that are still going on with Susan and Buffett, Bill and Melinda Gates, Spain, France, among others. The campaign goes up to April 2024 to raise 800 million, and we've been able to raise 442, which is almost 50%. And therefore, the need for continuous engagement and efforts from the CSOs. In a nutshell, that's what I can recap for those who didn't get. Then, so we now start the Q&A. Thank you. Over to you, Vincent.
Thank you, Jackie, and apologies for the sound. I'd like to give the floor to Abdul Kadir and Maziko, but maybe before that, maybe Mati, if you would like to provide a quick update on the on the GLA update, maybe for 2 or 3 minutes in English. Mati, over to you.
Sure. Thanks, Vincent. Thank you, and apologies again to everyone for not catching up the chat while I was speaking. So I just wanted to provide the update on the JLA as it's coming to a close, and wanted to give you some key highlights about what it has achieved and some of the next steps based on the evaluation that was just provided. So in terms of high level achievements, it's really, for those who are not familiar with the Joint Learning Agenda, it's a program that was spearheaded by the GFF, but in collaboration with Gavi, Global Fund, UHC 2030, and the Partnership for Maternal, Newborn, and Child Health, PMNCH. And the objective of the JLA was to provide health financing training for UHC, and the training has been provided to 20 countries across Africa, 10 Anglophone and 10 Francophone. And it has been able to train over 400 civil society members, journalists, youth, as well as some members of parliament. And the training has gone over, it was spread in 3 phases. The first one was really to provide a quick training in online training of trainers. It was supposed to be done in person, but it happened right before COVID. So it ended up being a hybrid format. It was, the second pillar was on doing in-country practical, but also action-oriented training boot camps, focusing on building civil society capacity, but also working on developing action plans across the different countries on health financing for UHC. The last one was really to make sure that CSOs were able to put their learning into practice with the support of tailored capacity building for TA mentoring and grants. One thing that is important to highlight is that this work was done with support funding coming from Gavi, Global Fund, and PM and the GFF. The delivery of the program was done by Waki Health and Impact Santé Afrique from Cameroon. So the GLA is coming to a close. That's why I wanted to provide this update. Next steps are to really build on the work that has been done. There is a community of practice that has been created that is actually keeping all the different movement that has been built around the JLA. Many of you on this call have participated in this program. Many of you have action plans, some of which have been are being supported by PAI through the NGO host. And I know some of the key achievements, that we have been documenting are in Kenya, some counties, from what we've heard, some counties have dedicated or increased funding. We have some movements happening in Nigeria and several other countries, in Cameroon as well. Some new coalitions have been formed. Other coalitions on UHC for health financing for UHC have been strengthened. In Madagascar, we have dedicated funding for contraceptive, which has been increased. So there's a lot of things happening across countries. One thing that is critical and that is important is to link the work of the JLA and the community of practice. There is a website that is actually going to be shared. My colleague Kirsten is leading on this, but we will share with you the website so you can see what is happening across countries, who's doing what, where, and also where they can document some of the best practices. This is going to be linked as well to the P4H network that is hosted at the World Health Organization. I'll stop there. I don't want to take too much of your time, but I'm happy to respond to any questions you have. Over to you, Vincent. I hope this is sufficient.
Thank you, Mati. And I'd like to invite Abdul Kadir and then Maziko.
Thank you. Good afternoon, colleagues. And thanks to the GFF Youth team for that great presentation in terms of the funding that they have already secured on behalf of the youth in GFF and the NGO and in the NGO forum. My only concern are two. One, which is we actually had wanted to see a component of the disability, how well the youth groups, the youth component is representing the issue of the adolescent group. That's one. And then two, the community of practice. It's a very good initiative actually, which I saw it as a good learning point. It's actually an exchange of ideas for countries, things that are actually working well for other countries, and how other countries can also emanate that one as well. So these are my two concerns, and I wanted to see how they can respond to that. Thank you so much, and thanks to the team for that wonderful presentation. Over.
Maziko, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I think mine is just to ask the colleagues on the call that what Marty presented and which was summarized by Jackie is upon us as civil society to look at it, whether you have any other questions in terms of the highlights which was mentioned about the coordination, alignment, the campaign, and also what we can do in terms of supporting the Deliver the Future campaign, which is ongoing. So I just want to ask our colleagues who on the call if indeed they have any other reaction to what was presented by Marty and was summarized by Jackie. Thank you.
Hi, Vincent. I think there are no questions, right? Maybe we can.
There is a hand. There is a hand from Samula.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Marty, for that great presentation. So for the one that was done in French, I think I missed, a couple of parts in that. So what I will advise, for the team to share with us at least the interpreted, presentation, whether in a transcript form, they can share with us immediately after this meeting so that we can actually catch up with some of the updates, that were given in that particular presentation. That is what I just wanted to say in relation to what the last speaker asked, with regards to our reactions. They can share with us the translated copy so that some of us will have to catch up from what we missed already in the presentation. Over. Thank you.
I have one question for Matti, if that's okay. Matti, you mentioned in your presentation about the future of global health initiatives as an additional effort for alignment. So I wanted to ask you from the GFF side, do you see already strong commitment to the agenda of the future of global health initiatives? And just to share with everyone that this is something that is being finalized and the consultation is still going on. I can put the details in the chat. But yeah, I wanted to see if there is already a strong commitment from the GFF side.
Sure, thanks a lot, Miri. I hope you're well. There's actually, the GFF has been part of the discussion, as you know, and the GFF leadership has taken part in all the discussions on the GHI from Wilton Park before and is very involved technically. Our head of secretariat was just in Geneva I think it was last week or the week before, and had some discussions with the key stakeholders, namely Gavi, Global Fund, United, and some other WHO and some other actors in Geneva. So this is something that we are very much engaged in. I know there was a discussion, a follow-up discussion, CSO focused last week on this. So this is a conversation we are part of, and moving forward, I think the next, there is a roadmap that's supposed to be drafted in Lusaka in the next 10 days, and the GFF will be contributing to that as well. So this is something that we're very much engaged in. Look forward to seeing the roadmap where, you know, and it's also part of the discussion at the IG. So the roadmap is going to lay some groundwork, and of course there will be efforts from all the GHIs, but the discussions have to be validated by the boards of those GHIs. So to be continued. I'm happy to provide updates maybe at the CSCG workshop once we know more, but I think the next steps are really to will be around the Lusaka meeting happening at the end of the month. Over to you.
Thank you.
So this closes our Q&A discussion.
Vincent, there's a question from Abebe.
Perfect.
He says he joined late, but his question is, how can GFF Secretariat follow of the CSO's engagement at country level? Do you think there is improvement? Maybe you can rephrase it. Over to you, Vincent.
Thank you, Abebe, and greetings to you. The question is very broad. So when you talk about CSO engagement, are you talking about the work of CSO, civil society that is funded through the NGO host? Are you talking about CSO engagement within the country platforms? Yes, there is improvement. There is room for improvement as well. What we are seeing is level of engagement varies widely across countries, and we are actually looking in one of the IG sessions is on the evaluation, and two of some of the KPIs, the key performance indicators that we are looking at in the upcoming evaluation is focuses on CSO engagement, participation at country level, increased civil society voice. And this is really something that has improved across a lot of countries. Now, if you're talking about CSO engagement in terms of what civil society is doing specifically through the NGO host funded projects, it's something that we are looking at from our perspective, but I think these are some of the, as it's being documented, this is something that you can contribute to not only in Ethiopia, but other countries, but also PAI through the newsletter and through the impact stories that PAI is sharing on a regular basis. We can see where CSO engagement is, where CSO engagement stands, and really looking forward to the CSCG workshop next week to, actually it's happening this week, it's not next, but we will discuss CSO engagement, how it can be improved, what are the gaps, what are the challenges, and some of you can contribute to that discussion as well.
And thank you, Mati. Thank you, Abebe, also for your question. Dear IG reps, is there any additional insights or question that you would like to share or submit to the GFF Secretariat? And with that, I'd like to invite Kenneth to take it over for also to close this Q&A discussion, if that's appropriate. Over to you, Kenneth.
Thank you, Vincent, and thank you all the intervenants. Thank you to the GFF and the IG reps who completed the information already shared. We are coming to the end of this Q&A, and I think that we had very interesting questions. I would like now to give the floor. Just give me 1 minute. I would like now to give the floor to Miria, if that's right.
Yes.
Yes, to tell us about the civil society and youth engagement at the IG16. Miria, you have the floor.
Thank you, Kenneth, and everyone. So we will look a little bit back on the IG16 that took place in July and see what were some highlights. And then I'm going to show you what's on the agenda for the IG17 that is taking place next week. Of course, you have all received all the documents this time in your inbox. So to start with, just to start with some highlights from the report that came out of the GFF Secretariat after the IG16. So these were just some high-level points that were raised about the outcomes and the impact of the GFF in partner countries. The data monitoring capacities were highlighted as being more strengthened with more rapid cycle monitoring and the aspiration to have more gender sensitive and equity analysis in the annual data gathering for all countries in the future. And based on this data, we also saw clear positive outcomes in GFF countries compared to non-GFF countries, for instance, when it comes to vaccination coverage and access to family planning. Another highlight had also to do with capacity building and engagement with government focal points. There are some workshops that are going to take place in countries. Some already have happened to refresh the understanding of everyone's role in the GFF process, starting with the government focal points. And after also a plea from us, from the civil society and youth delegation, we saw the Secretariat committing to strengthen the role of the liaison officers in the countries and assess their performance. And that's important for us as a constituency because that's also at country level, the linking pin with a GFF. But you can read more on that in the IG16 report, of course, that it's in your inbox. Next slide. One of the items of the IG16 was, of course, the resource mobilization campaign. And this is where we all committed to engage in high-level events at global level and country level to strengthen the campaign. We agreed on the narrative of the campaign at the time, which is the return on investment. And we incorporated examples from the countries that showed the impact of the GFF with focusing on adolescents and youth. And something that came very strongly in the IG16 was the importance of aligning with other global health initiatives. And that's a continuous discussion that will be taken on also next week at the IG17. So the alignment with other global health initiatives, not only in terms of resource mobilization, as you see on this slide, but in programming and implementation. Another agenda item from July was the governance and the roadmap that was suggested at the meeting was endorsed. A strong input from us was to make sure that there is an alignment between the agendas of the investors group and of the trust fund committee to make sure that there is a back and forth between the two separate groups and that there is alignment on the key priority areas that you see on the screen. There is also a request to clarify again what are the responsibilities of the investors group, what are the responsibilities of the trust fund committee, and all the working groups. So the roadmap was endorsed, and I also shared it with you with the rest of the documents. And we also highlighted during this discussion that whenever possible, it's good to meet in person. The next important point in the next slide was about the upcoming evaluation of the GFF strategy. A key input from our side was that we wanted a comprehensive assessment and not just yes or no indicators, and keep the focus on health system strengthening. We endorsed the process of the evaluation. Again, the alignment with other global health initiatives was important. So now this process has started, we have endorsed it, and actually Oyeyemi and Kenneth are our representatives in the evaluation committee that is going to steer this process. It's very important because this process is going to also feed the new GFF strategy, so after 2025. So we will keep you posted with this process in future webinars, but I think it's key. It's a key development that is also going to be discussed next week. So these were, let's say, some highlights from IG16, and now I want to walk you through the agenda of IG17 that is going to happen next week. So first of all, you know that there's going to be a civil society workshop ahead of the IG meeting. We are going to have some time at the opening to read out the outcomes of the workshop of the civil society and youth organizations. So that's going to be our moment, let's say. We're going to have a spotlight from Kenya that is happening always in the country where the IG takes place. And then the first item that is also for endorsement is the stock taking. That is an agenda item that we also had in previous meetings. So we get an update from the Secretariat on milestones, on challenges and progress based on key performance indicators. So all this is presented in a PowerPoint that I shared with you. And I think it's going to be very useful also for us to go through it and see impact of the GFF. So this is going to be for endorsement. And then it's going to be the discussion on the global alignment agenda. And this is where the future of global health initiatives discussion is going to come in. And we are going to discuss there what are the next steps for the GFF in this process. There is no document to study and endorse at this agenda item, but I think it's going to be an important discussion that will also inform the next years of the GFF. Next slide. In the same day, we are also going to discuss the evaluation. So the beginning of this process, we're going to have an update and basically see the next steps of the process. So no endorsement here of any document. There is a document on SRHR, sexual and reproductive health and rights, that I shared with you, and it's for endorsement. And it's basically after some deep dives that happen in the GFF on SRHR, it's a document that can inform how to streamline SRHR in GFF implementation. So this approach paper is going to be endorsed. So you have it. If someone is into the topic and has an opinion or any red flags that we need to raise on this topic, please send them over before the meetings next week. So that's the first day. And then in the next day, we have two important items. One, it's another document that is for endorsement, and it's about the GFF's engagement with the private sector. I read it this morning. I think I saw it very positively because I saw a lot of criticism and caution from the GFF towards engagement with the private sector, which is something that we have been raising in IG meetings. And basically, there is an action point that if this paper is endorsed, then the GFF is going to set up a working group to make some recommendation on what should the GFF do with the private sector in RMNCH. So if you're experienced in private sector engagement and you have recommendations already for this paper, send them over as well. And last but not least, a new item for the GFF is climate and health. And there is a paper that suggests how the GFF can incorporate climate and health in the strategy and in their work in the countries, also for endorsement. So you see, we have now all the documents available for each and every one of the agenda items. Quite diverse agenda. So yes, it's a call to everyone. I mean, we will study them and get ready, but especially if you have experience in any of these elements, we would love to hear from you, which are any discussion points or any cautions that we need to raise. All the documents are available in your inbox and also in the link that Vincent put in the slide, so in the chat. So I'm going to stop here and hand it over to Christina.
Thank you. So thanks so much for that, Miria, and to all of our IG reps. I want to say how appreciative and grateful we are. This is a group of 6 folks who dedicate an incredible amount of time to listening deeply to what our CSO and youth constituencies want and need from their governments, from their health systems, from the GFF, and then make sure that they take those issues and those questions into the IG meetings and make sure that our voices are there in the room with them representing us. So I just want to say I think we're very appreciative of them. And one of the purposes of this call, as you've heard from Kenneth and Mary and Oyemi and others, is to make sure that they're sharing the agenda and we're creating some space for some initial feedback from you about what are the most important questions and issues that you want them to bring into the room. So what we thought we would do before we went into a question and answer is use a Mentimeter. I don't know if you all know how to do this. What you do is you, here, my colleague Vincent makes it easy. What you do is you go over to the chat. Oh, that's fine, Mati. Thank you to you and Stephanie for joining. All right, see you later. So if you go over, I'm sorry?
No, I was just saying thank you to everyone and looking forward to seeing you all next week in Nairobi.
This week, Mati. It's shocking, but it's this week.
It's far away, but it's right around the corner. Thanks.
It's right around the corner. That's true. It's next week. Thank you. So what we'd like to do is if you could open up this Mentimeter, you just click it. It's in the chat, and you will see an opportunity to answer a question. And you can just answer this any way you want. Based on what we've heard from Miria about what the IG17 agenda is, could you please share the most important issues that you want our IG reps to bring into that meeting on your behalf? We're going to give 2 or 3 minutes for folks to kind of start sharing their ideas and just keep them going. So please take time to do that right now. Vincent, will folks just answer one time, or is it possible to submit multiple responses?
It's definitely possible to To have multiple responses, you just have
Okay,
to
great.
refresh the link.
Okay, great. So if you submitted something, but you want to do, but you want to put in a few more ideas, just go to the chat, open it up, and you can submit the next one. And then collectively, we'll all look at it together.
This meeting is being recorded.
So you can see we're starting to see some ideas come up. We're going to give it a few more minutes and see if we see some core themes. Vincent, maybe you can help me. Maybe I'll read some of these out in English, and then maybe you can read some of them out in French.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. About 2 more minutes. Oh, the Mentimeter can't open on the phone. Okay. Abdul, if you want to drop into the chat some key interests or priorities you have that you want to make sure IG reps are thinking about as they go into the meeting, please go ahead, Abdul, and drop your idea in the chat. Thank you for letting us know that's not working, Abdul. Okay, in the interest of time, I'm maybe going to summarize what I see. I'll have Vincent do the same in French, and then we'll hand it over to Miria and the IG reps, who I know wanted to have a more vibrant dialogue with you about what your most pressing issues are. So I'm seeing some themes around sexual and reproductive health and rights, ensuring that there's funding and accountability for sexual and reproductive health and rights, making sure that youth and adolescents' sexual and reproductive health and rights is prioritized. There's an interest in making sure that we're talking about youth and HIV. I'm seeing some issues around funding. There's a call for resource allocation. Maybe during the discussion, you could tell us a little bit more what you mean by that. Resource allocation. But more financial support for CSO engagement. Can you go up a little bit? I want to see what else I see in terms of increased funding. Be great during our discussion to hear funding for what. Can you go up a little bit, Vincent? Financial support for CSOs. So I'm seeing several things, several calls to make sure that there's financial support for civil society engagement, including at the country level, increased funding in general, and resource allocation. Great. Some of the other themes here I'm seeing in the chat is interest in making sure that we're thinking about adolescents, and we're thinking about disabilities, and let's see. Sorry, I'm trying to read this. And also thinking about youth who are both in and out of school, and HIV. I'm seeing several about capacity building, capacity strengthening. Some interest here in making sure that climate change is integrated into the broader RMNCH agenda. But also, here's a note here that this is going to require evaluation of country stakeholder strategies and advocacy strategies. Maybe during the discussion, the person who mentioned that could share a little bit more what you mean there, because that's a very interesting idea. There is caution for the private sector engagement in healthcare. As we heard from Miria, that's on the agenda. And I think a question here is to flag for that we need to think about the equity concerns and issues that brings up. There's a question about the role of youth and civil society in the alignment agenda, and making sure that that young people and civil societies are able to participate in that. And then I also saw something about an interest in making sure that we're thinking about sexual reproductive and maternal health in emergencies. Can you scroll up and see if I missed any big ones? And then also there's, we talked about an evaluation that's coming up, which isn't, I don't think it's on the agenda, but it should include, this is interesting. The evaluation must include both assessment of the results, but also the process. In other words, how is the GFF engaging at the Secretariat level and also at the country level? So with me reflecting back just some of those top ideas, we just wanted to sort of prime our brains and get thinking about some of the interests that you want our IG reps to carry forth on your behalf. I'll hand it back over to Miria to continue the discussion.
Yeah, no, that's very helpful. On the evaluation that you said, Christina, that's on the agenda, so we can definitely bring this up. And
Super.
Oyeyemi and Kenneth can also bring these things up in the committee. This is very helpful, so you can keep the Mentimeter responses coming, and we will be having them on hand during the meeting. Oyeyemi will coordinate the discussion now. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Miria. And thank you everyone for your contribution so far. And like Miria said, let's keep the Mentimeter running. Let's keep adding more inputs, because of course with that, we would know issues to take forward to the IG. So based on Miria's presentation, she presented, she gave a report on the IG16 as well as the agenda for IG17. And I know that we would have, she had actually even shared the documents before today, and I'm sure more of us would have gone through the documents. And so this is the time to ask questions or contributions based on our presentation and the documents that has been shared so far. So if you have questions, let us know so that we can take it up from there. Is anyone raising their hand?
I have a question.
Awesome. Go ahead.
The question that I have is, I had applied for sponsorship to participate in the Nairobi conference, but haven't received any response.
Noted. So I will call on someone to from the NGOs to reply your question, but it's noted. Do we have another question?
Oyeyemi, yes, I think Joshua has his hand raised, possibly for same topic. Over to you, Joshua. La parole est à vous.
Oh, thank you so much, Vincent, Oyeyemi, and everyone on the call on the chair committee. Once again, I'm Joshua Tinomjuni, and I'm representing Jomas from Uganda. My question is not that much different from my colleague who has just raised a question about the application to attend the Nairobi summit for youth representatives of the GFF countries. So, and I would like to thank you for organizing this presentation and meeting to take on. But that was my question. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So it's the same question. Okay, I think I see a chat. Let me read it.
I think
I think that's Christiana responding.
The NGO also will take up these practical questions, but if we have any input for the content of the meeting, that will also be very helpful.
Exactly.
If I could suggest, we have some time at the end of this call to answer questions about the upcoming workshop and also give you a teaser about what we're going to cover during the workshop. So maybe we could hold those questions till the end. Thank you so much for those questions. And we can focus these next few minutes specifically on feedback for the GFF. And we're noting down the questions about the workshop, and I will address them at the end. Thank you.
Awesome. So can we have can we have contributions from folks? So aside the Nairobi events coming on your application, Can we have questions or contribution based on Miriam's presentation and based on the workshop coming for next week?
I see Alois.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. Thank you, me for and thanks everyone for the good presentations. Just commenting briefly on the issue of climate change, integration of climate change and health, and particularly for reproductive, maternal, and child and adolescent health, and or the sexual reproductive health space. Given the upcoming COP28 that is starting from the end of this month to mid-December, is there anything that has been organized by either GFF or partners alongside COP28 in Dubai? Because some of us will be there. If there's any avenues to engage, then we can see. Otherwise, I think it's a very good area to strategize and look at how we can we can tag along and address the issues of climate change and the impact in the maternal and child health, as well as sexual reproductive health. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alois. That's taken. Can we hear from Abdul Kadir? Abdul, you can go ahead. Unmute yourself and go ahead. Abdul Kadir? Or is he an old aunt?
Not sure.
Okay,
I think it's a recent one, but he's not here. Abdul, over to you.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Okay. Thank you once again to the presenters. I think we are really understanding and also getting along with all of the presentations so far. It's not a question actually, it's because already someone has asked the question, my question that I wanted to ask in terms of the climate change, but just a contribution. I'm really happy to see the issue of adolescents coming up, because we, for far too long, people have all partners, including CSO and the IAG, forget the issue of adolescents in most of our programs development. So, and we only focus on youth and children. But if we are now seeing the issue of adolescents coming up in program development, I think it is good. So let's keep it up, and kudos to the team. Thanks so much for that.
Thank you so much for that. Yes, the issues of adolescents are also being mainstreamed in all of the conversation now. And based on Aloy's contribution, I'm talking about the SRHR as well as private sector and climate change strategy of the GFF. How are we bringing it up at the COP28, happening in Dubai? So it's something that definitely we can take up and have how to engage it. And it's a beautiful thing, knowing fully well that you are also going, and we'll see how to engage you to actually put that forward as some of the items that GFF is also taking forward. But I would call on anyone who is interested among the IG rep to also contribute to this. Miria, Jackie, what do you think about the COP28 raised by Alois?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, and all the participants. The issue of adolescents is a concern in many of these countries, and I think we need to continue to track as we implement, and also look at the best practices in other countries, what has happened and what is documented. If I can give an example, in Uganda, adolescents, even when we are talking about women, children, and adolescents, the adolescents aspect came in late after a number of advocates and other concerned members raising it. But in some countries, even up to now, is still struggling. So I think we need to tease out what is working well and what else needs to be enhanced as we move towards tracking. And in the agenda, we are going to be tracking and looking at so far what is being done and how it's being done. So we can keep an eye on that and raise that concern in case those gaps are identified. Yeah, when it gets to the issue of climate and health, again, many countries are discussing, and CSOs are on top of it. In Uganda, there will be even a pavilion in Dubai on climate and health and the integration of reproductive health. So it is timely that we have this paper, and any input, again, from here before we have the meeting will be very critical to help us shape the agenda and the role of GFF. The issue of picking from actually now some of the issues that were raised, the issue of alignment, the role of youth and CSOs in alignment. At global level, we have the CSO group which is representatives from the different mechanisms and financing initiatives, where CSOs are drawing the agenda of the future of global health initiatives, and we've come up with a CSO call to action and statement in the Zambia agenda, which is going to take place. Unfortunately, we will be in the same meeting. I don't know whether the hub has someone who's going to represent us and report back. But this agenda is not translated back in our countries. So that we need to look at how does that kind of CSO engagement on the future of global health initiatives being trickled down. And again, now that it's on the agenda, it's important that we raise it, since our members, our colleagues have raised it, to clearly articulate at national level how is this going to be translated. Yeah, those are the few issues that I picked for discussion. Over to you, Oye.
Thank you, Jackie, for that contribution. Miria, you wanted to say something the other time?
No, just a call to members of this constituency who will be maybe in Dubai on the topic of COP28 to maybe share some updates with the mailing list afterwards for the sake of informing each other.
Okay, thank you. I think we've come to the end of this Q&A. If there's no other question or contribution.
And just a reminder that if people take time to read the documents and they come with concrete suggestions, please send them over either directly to any of us or to the NGO host, and then they will forward your information to us.
Okay. Our baby is participating at the COP. Good to know.
That's great, Abebe.
Thank you.
Fight the good fight for us, Abebe. We're all in trouble.
Use the GFF document to
exactly
to see what they promised to do.
Sure.
So, Oyemi, I see we're coming close to the end. I'm wondering if I could step in a little bit and answer the questions about the workshop and maybe give a preview of the workshop. Would that be okay, Oyemi?
Very good.
Okay, great, wonderful. So first, thanks you for this very rich discussion. In terms of the workshop participants, we only had room for a very small number of in-person delegates. And if you have not heard yet from the GFF to organize your travel, we're afraid we can't offer you support to come join us in person. You'll be receiving a letter from Vincent today with information if you were not chosen to be part of our in-person delegate. One person asked me if we could give you feedback on our decision. Honestly, we received 140 applications and incredible leaders from around the world. And with the CSCG Planning Committee, 10 folks who are sitting on this call, we made sure that we had good representation across regions, genders, and issue areas. So if you were not selected, it's by no means a reflection on how much we value your input. We're really hoping that those who are not joining us in person will be able to join us virtually. We've designed the workshop so that there are some sessions where it's going to be very easy to participate virtually. And we're scheduling those for kind of midday to later in the day to hopefully welcome in more folks who are not going to be with us in the Kenya time zone. And we're really designing the activities with the CSCG to make sure that there's meaningful hybrid participation. In fact, in many cases, our moderators will be hybrid. So please look out for that letter from us to confirm whether or not you'll be able to, information about how to participate virtually. We're also going to be sending out a finalized agenda by the end of today. I wanted to take this time just to give you some highlights of the agenda because I think it very much builds on today's discussion. Again, alongside our valued colleagues at the CSCG, we decided to design an agenda that did a deep dive into all the themes that we've talked about today. We are going to be collectively reflecting on progress in ensuring meaningful leadership of civil society and young people in shaping GFF processes, both at the country level and the national level. We're going to start with a snapshot of our civil society and engagement strategy, which is kind of our roadmap, our unifying document about our vision for how civil society and youth should be engaged in the GFF. And then we're going to give a stock taking and say, how well are we doing? How well are civil society and youth engaged? Where have we seen great progress in terms of them being at the table in a meaningful way and really being empowered to shape decisions? And where do we still see gaps? And with those gaps, that will give us an agenda for what we want to do more and better in the coming years. In addition to that, we have some areas where we're going to be really focusing on what civil society and young people have achieved through their advocacy and their accountability. There's going to be one session on the work that civil society and youth partners are doing to advance gender equity and ensure social inclusion. I really appreciated the call out for us to remember that we're talking about sexual, reproductive, maternal, and newborn health for everybody, including people who have disabilities, including populations have experienced historical discrimination and marginalization. So we're going to have a session moderated by Christina Chilimba on that, along with our colleague Shafia. They're in the Country Engagement Working Group. We're going to have another session on meaningful accountability that is being moderated by our colleague Esther, alongside her accountability co-chairs Nadia and Sochil. And that's going to be an opportunity to really look at some specific tools and approaches, proven tools and approaches that partners have used at the country level to drive accountability. Accountability for financing, accountability for access, accountability for quality. And we are going to do another session looking at sustainable financing, which is going to be moderated by our colleagues from Waki Health. You heard from Mati that what Waki Health was one of the partners supporting the JLA, Joint Learning Agenda. And our colleagues who participate in the Joint Learning Agenda will be discussing, sharing their work, advancing sustainable financing, especially mobilizing domestic resources. And our colleague, Bia Desina, who's on the call right now, is going to talk about some of the very strong coaching and training that the current GFF grantees have been getting in domestic resource mobilization. Our IG reps are going to be in the room and listening deeply throughout this session, and we're going to end the session by them coming back to us and validating whether they heard our strong interests and concerns and making sure that they're bringing a really strong agenda into the IG meeting on our behalf. And so that's just a preview of what's going to be coming up next week. Again, a small group of us will be in Nairobi, but I hope there's going to be a big group of us who are participating virtually. Expect a letter from us inviting you to participate virtually and an agenda coming up soon. So I just wanted to wrap by giving a plug to please invite everyone to join that very exciting meeting that's coming up soon. I'll hand it back to you, Oyemi, and thank you for giving me the floor.
Thank you, Christina, for that very clear update. I'm sure folks are happy to be part of the conversation next week, and then those that are not going to be there physically are pumped up to be there on and virtually. So thank you, Christina. So we are coming to the end of the discussion now. I hand it over to Jackie, if she has anything, or Maziko, yes, Maziko, to give closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Oemi, and thank you so much, IG reps, but also the host organization, Christina, Vincent, but also the CSG members and the CSOs who have joined this meeting. As you know, we had 3 agenda items we were discussing this afternoon. Was on the presentation on the GFF Secretariat updates, but also had the overview of the GFF IG16 and IG17 agenda, but also update which has just been completed by Christina on CSG updates to the Nairobi IG meeting. I want to thank you so much for joining this. As has been communicated by our hosts, will be copied and be shared, whatever will be happening from now until the IG meeting, but also other opportunities which might come in between. So on behalf of my colleagues in the IG, I want to thank you all, and I hope to meet you next time. Thank you very much.
I hope to see all of you online or in person next week.
Okay, see you then. Thank you, Christina,
Bye.
everyone. Bye.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Christina.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Yemi.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
See you this week.
Bye.
Nice to see you.
See you this week. See you
Bye.
this week. Hello, Vincent. Are you still there? Hello.
Absolutely, I'm still here.
Yes, Vincent. I was having issue with my WhatsApp phone, so I have to be the WhatsApp has to delete my number from all the WhatsApp group.
Okay.
I've sent a message to the WhatsApp to join me back into the CSG WhatsApp 2023 group. I sent you a message.
Of course. Thank you very much, Abdul, and I will proceed with that. Thank you very much for your note.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And thank you, everyone. Merci, Jacob, Joshua, Jackie, Nadia Ramatulai, Samuel, and Christina. See you soon. Take care.
Thank you, Vincent.